Welcome to the Hunt Test Hobo Podcast, your place for truckside chats and insights into the retriever game. Whether you're just getting started or you're a seasoned handler, this podcast is another resource for tips, tricks, and insights from both the amateurs and professional trainers' perspectives. Each week, we'll dive into the nitty-gritty of retriever training, sharing stories of success, overcoming challenges, and forging stronger bonds with our dogs. This is the Hunt Test Hobo Podcast. I'm Chris Rudd, your host, fellow retriever enthusiast, and student of the game. Let's dive in. Welcome to... Oh my gosh. That was weird.
You gotta leave that in.
I don't know, man. That was like out of nowhere. We'll try again. Welcome to another episode of the Hunt Test Hobo Podcast. I am not dying. I feel like that was just like, maybe it was the Taco Bell I went and got. My family's not here. And I was like, I am so tired. Like I've had like some form of pork every single day. And, hold on. I also realized something I got to fix here really quick, but it's probably not the end of the world. I can multitask here. So I've had pork like every single day because right before my wife and the girls drove to Maryland to see Kayla's sister. And it kind of snuck up on us. They left on Monday morning. And we were going to have friends, no, they left Sunday morning. But anyway, we were having friends over on Saturday, and it just happened that we had to cancel. But I was smoking a pork butt and making poor man's burn ends. So...
Oh, no. All
so
for myself.
Everybody left. Everybody left. Like, it wasn't like my family could eat leftovers of it because they were leaving. It was just me. So every day for lunch, I've had the macaroni and cheese that my wife made and the pulled pork. And on top of that, well, I was prepared. But then on top of that, I put some, because their kids, we weren't sure if their kids were going to like, pulled pork. And I asked them and they said, yeah, but they like sausage and stuff. I'm like, okay. So I bought like a pack of Italian sausages. So I've been eating the Italian sausages for dinner and I've been eating the pulled pork for lunch. And then I've been trying to scour for vegetables and things of that nature, just to have some balance of my diet here.
I'll make sure I stay like 20 feet away from you tomorrow morning.
Yeah. And I was so tired of eating that. And I was like, where can I go really quick before this podcast? I was like, and I didn't want to disconnect the dog trailer because, the weight distribution systems. I was like, where can I go through a drive-through that I don't have to disconnect the trailer? The only option was Taco Bell. So, everybody, welcome to another episode of the Hunt. I can't even talk. Welcome to another episode. I'm joined today with my good pal, as my wife says, my dog training wife.
You're my
Tyler.
boyfriend, according to my wife,
yeah.
So it's just very fitting.
Mr. Tyler Brenner from good old Gun Dog Success. So, since we last talked, you had a pretty big, momentous thing happen in your life. What was it?
Had a baby.
That's pretty big. It's not as big as having a litter, but it's pretty. I'm just kidding.
No, I mean that's like one out of compared to like 9 puppies, or we only had it was a singleton.
It's a singleton. Yeah.
Well, she's a little over a month old. Her name's Elodie.
Elodie.
She's doing good, and
I'm acting
definitely
like I
a
don't
life
know
adjustment. So.
I'm acting like I don't know any of this information. So.
You don't talk to me. So.
Yeah, I'm going to just laugh this entire episode. So I apologize to folks because I think if it's not like we talk about inappropriate things, but maybe not things we want everybody to know about. But I swear we have like 2 to 3 hour podcasts on our phone randomly, like when you're training or I'm training or driving or whatever.
It's a bummer that we don't record them because some of those are better than these.
Oh, I'm sure they are. But yeah, Tyler and I have so many podcasts that y'all don't get to listen to. And probably for some good reasons, though.
Good.
But yeah, so I'm excited mostly because I have no idea where we're going to go with this, except for I have 2 topics in the back of my back pocket. I don't know. I don't even know why I can't even think. It's probably because I had like I've had a very mentally, like not even stressful, just mentally draining couple days at work. It's just been a lot of thinking, and I really just want to go build something or something, just to do something with my hand. Actually, you know what I should do? I should just go do force fetch and force to pile.
No,
I don't get mad or anything. I'm just like,
no, it's not even getting mad. It's just that's just more decisions, and because you've gotten better
it's so
at it
autopilot, though. I'm just like,
for you now,
Yeah,
until the dog has a rough time, and then you're like, whoa, mental decisions.
But okay, so the 2 dogs I'm doing force to pile, they're in like
you'll be fine.
They're at the end of it.
You're gonna
like,
be fine.
I'm like almost ready to be like, all right, we're moving on. But I saw one thing yesterday, and I was like, nah, it won't hurt to do it another 2 days. Why rush
I think
it?
I have like 16 dogs in force fetch.
No,
right yeah,
that's bad. 16
it's
dogs.
Rough. Yeah.
Oh man,
that's just the ones in force fetch.
Yeah,
and one of them's a short hair that's a little stubborn, so that's cool.
Yeah, that's not fun.
I take the weird ones every once in a while. It's kind of like a challenge that I put upon myself. I'm getting a Boykin. I'm excited about that.
Is it from like reputable lines? Do you know anything about it?
I don't have the pedigree yet, but it'll be like in August or September I'll get it. But apparently it's like a long-term deal, like teach the dog how to handle, not just like hunt them up and move on,
Yeah, and for
I've
those
only
that don't
trained
know,
one other Boykin, and then I had a water spaniel that was pretty darn good, but haven't taken one to like seasoned and above, so that'll be interesting.
Yeah, so I'm gonna brag on you for a little bit. You are the first pro that I know of personally that Chris Rudd does. So this is a pretty small group, but you got Clark Kennington on this. You got
I do.
Dan.
There's not many things you can say about that.
You do have them. You are the only one that I know of that has put a grand title on a Fluffy. So congratulations to me.
Thanks.
And this is only to me. You are the king of the Fluffies. So Tyler passed good old Whiskers, a.k.a. Whiskey, or vice versa. His name's Whiskey.
Well, his real name's OAW WTF.
What?
This is registered name is OAW Whiskey Tango Foxtrot.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I was like, that's not his name. I've seen it written somewhere, and I recognized it. But anyway, Tyler got him through the grueling Flight A of the Grand.
He got through the last fall, too, which was also tough.
Yeah. So
he got double dive bombed.
He got 2 dive bombs in a row.
He did.
But congratulations to be king of the Fluffies, and I've heard he's been quite put out to stud from what I'm hearing. He got a lot of people.
He's got one litter that we have 7 of the 9, and I'm going to get the other one here soon.
You have 7 of the 9? So you're going to have 8
right now.
9?
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, you are going to be the golden guy.
Well, Dan owns one.
Yep.
And then Colin owns one.
Yeah,
Colin owns one. And then Dan has one client one. And then Amy kept 2. Her daughter has one that I have. My buddy has one and another friend of mine. So I'll have 5.
Yep. You're king of the Fluffies. Congratulations.
So we have quite a few of them here.
And so now if you guys are all looking for a golden pro, hit Tyler up. He's ready. He's got it. Yeah. Anyway,
there's 10 in there right now.
There's 10. That's quite a few. And a lot. You got a few of.
I have no Chessies right now, though.
Yeah. You lost your Chessie.
I'm down with Chessie.
But I'll be hanging out with the Chessie tomorrow.
That's okay.
Actually, you're coming too, aren't you?
I'm coming.
We're gonna have the full group together for the first time all year. Look at that.
Mm-hmm. Getting the band back together.
People are listening to this and like, will you guys talk about something that's not between you two? It's like, this is like
have we ever
to...
released the name of our group chat? Has that been talked about?
I don't know if it's that problem. I don't think Sharon would
No,
care.
I think it's just funny.
Yeah. Well,
our group chat, but that between all of us that go to Miss Sharon's is called Sharon's Angels, which I find quite comedic.
Yeah, it is what it is. I do not endorse or condemn. I'm just associated. And I did not name it. So, but anyway, Sharon's great, and she said she'd be on the podcast last year. I gotta make it happen, but I gotta like carry all the gear to her house. Is the only reason it hasn't happened yet, because there's no way I'm getting her on.
Oh no,
this situation.
Yeah.
But
did you ever get her internet fixed?
Yeah.
I remember that was a whole deal.
Yeah, we got her internet fixed.
There you go.
I didn't. Vince I did the whole Elon app thing, and then eventually Vince was so tired of not being able to get into Entry Express. I was like, I'm gonna go put it up on top of the deck, so it's on the third deck on the top.
I could just imagine Vince like climbing on the roof, like looking at his phone on Entry Express. I know, I'm just dreaming this up because I think it's pretty funny.
Oh yeah, trying to get in there.
I gotta enter the test. Gotta enter the trial.
Yeah. So you're gonna be running some Masters. That's your next phase of your life, is to jump into the AKC. Well, I mean, you've ran a bunch, but like to really to do the whole grind. So
yeah, and I have no interest in running like the Master National or anything like that because I take enough out of my life with the Grand, and I'm more interested in some other things in the Retriever game. But putting that Master title on dogs for people, there's a lot. It's very desired, and especially the Golden Retrievers. They like their AKC titles. So venturing off into that a little bit more.
Yep, I'm excited for you. I might join you. But not at any time soon.
Yeah, considering your dog is a QA2 and doesn't even know her
not her. I'm talking about the others. The
I know, but it's funny though.
Yeah. Well, I have ran one. All right, so let's jump into the topics. So this is something I have not talked to you about a ton because I didn't want to ruin it, and I've been saving this for the podcast. But I did send this to you, but I know you did not listen to it because you never listen to anything I send you. You're just
you sound like my wife.
See, it's exactly right. I sent this to you, and I was like, you should listen to this. You'll find this really interesting. And you're like, no, you'll just give me the summary, which is what I'm going to do. For those that don't know, I like podcasts, right? I'm a host this one, but I still listen to a ton of podcasts. And one of my favorites is the Ducks Unlimited podcast. I don't know if you guys all listen to it or whatnot, but they are doing a 3-part series on the history of the Labrador. And they have this guy, his name is Craig Koshik. I probably am butchering this. And at some point, I'm going to try to get him on the podcast because this is like a totally like a little brief on him or on what he's saying. But you all should go and listen to this podcast. It was incredibly interesting. Even if you're a Golden or a Chessie or Tollers, he talks about all that stuff. And it was so interesting to hear the development of almost all of those breeds. Maybe not all of those specific, but I know the Golden, the Chessie, and the Lab almost all come from that original St. John's water dog, which I don't know how much you know about that.
I've read about it before in the past.
So now you're the expert. So I shouldn't even do what I'm doing.
Yeah, no, I've read about it, and like the history of the Labrador and like its original like work that it was for is obviously not necessarily what it's intended for now. Mm-hmm. They're just extremely versatile, but yeah. So there's a bunch of interesting little like snaps that I grabbed out of it. So there's two parts that have been released at the time of this recording. Next week, they're going to do part 3, and part 3 is all about our game. So they did the first part, which was the original like development of the breed, where it came from, how the selection process even came to where that is, and it goes through a bunch of just canine psychology from wolves and stuff, which we'll get into. Which I felt like that's the part that I was like, dude, that's interesting.
Tyler's gonna nerd over this kind of stuff, and then it jumps into part 2 is all about what happened in Britain. So the breed was developed in Canada, and there's a whole bunch of like whether it's from Newfoundland or Labrador, all of those things. The breed wasn't actually named. And it actually became the Labrador until it was actually in Britain. But it originally came from Labrador, Canada, which we'll talk about. But that was all about their field trials and how they developed their field trials and that whole process. And there's some interesting things that I'll grab. So this is kind of like a reaction podcast to theirs. And then you and I have another topic that we're going to get into. But I think all listeners will really enjoy some of these. And I highly encourage for you to jump over and go to the Ducks Unlimited podcast and find this podcast. So I've grabbed some transcripts from it. And what I thought was so interesting is that what they were doing that originally created the labs was so much about ships. So when we hear like, oh, the Labrador was created to go fetch fish, which is what it was doing, but it was also living on these ships. And the selection process from them transferring back and forth, the natural selection that happened, was led by them having to live in close proximity to humans. And all of those self-selection that we would do as humans, just because we can't put up with a dog that's psycho, right? Imagine crossing the Atlantic with these dogs roaming around on your ship or in crates, barking, doing all the things. Like, I mean, I've been to many pro kennels, and when you get 80 dogs in there just barking, can you imagine what that would be like to be on a ship moving 20-something dogs?
The time.
Well, yeah. But like actually on a ship rocking. So like they're already just doing self-selection there. And on top of that, what they were doing is the reason that the St. John's situation happened is it was basically, and I'm probably going to butcher this, but it was an island, right? Where there was no interaction with other dogs. And these dogs that were like self-breeding from this island that we had kind of put together, they weren't like breeding them in like, hey, let's take this person and this dog and this dog together and breed.
Yeah, it was just pool.
It was like this natural pool thing that was kind of happening. But they were keeping the dogs that could do the certain things that we wanted them to do, which was to fetch seals, which I didn't realize. Like that was one of the main things. It was fish and seals.
Like they're actually physically
they're
grabbing
they're shooting the seals.
No way.
And then they're lowering the dogs into little boats, and then sending them to retrieve, because they're on ships, man. Like forget about that. You like that's what he's talking about. They're on ships. They're not in little boats like going out into the bay.
Yeah,
they're on these massive fishing rigs, and they got. I mean, think about it. What you back like jumping off a ship? Like that's not what they would have to lower them in a boat, and then they would have them fetch all the like the things that they had shot. Like birds and all these things that a bird would land and then they'd shoot the bird with a rifle.
And so then the dog gets out of the boat, picks it up, brings it back to that little boat,
and then they pull them back up. Imagine like
that's
seals.
Legit.
Isn't that cool? Like that's so much better than they retrieve fish.
Yeah, like, and there's so many dogs out there that can't go pick up a duck at 10 yards in the water. Nowadays, look what we've done as like a domesticated mankind. We've ruined the animal.
Yeah. So I thought that was really interesting. So here's like the little transcript. So he says, creatures that are able to live with each other in very confined circumstances for extended periods of time without freaking out, without fighting each other. So cooperation is there. Understanding empathy is there. And you want to have the same kind of, I think that's a typo. You want that you're the captain of the ship. You want your men to do what you want them to say they should do and do that, and the same for their dogs. So it's like this self-selection process that was going on. And he says, I thought to myself, oh, and then this is another thing he was talking about. One of the other things that just developed on this island was the skin coat. So remember one of the first hunting dogs was the poodle, right? That was one of the first dogs. And there's all these versatile breeds of dogs that were developed in what they called the continental breeds, the breeds that were part of like France, Germany, all those breeds. Well, they did a study that the dogs that came from that St. John's region, which are the labs, all these, and the labs took it to the next degree, is they did all this, and they were talking about this, the thickness of the skin was a huge part. And so then he's talking about how he's sitting in a duck blind just looking at this Labrador, and he is a historian. He's written tons of books on different breedings. But he takes his setters, I think hunting, he's from Canada. I can't remember. It was a pointing breed. I can't remember what he said. But he would take them hunting. But as soon as it got too cold, he would pull them, and then they would hunt this lab of his friend. And he was just curious about the skin coat. So then he found this study about the Labrador skin coat. And so this is him reflecting in the duck bone, a duck blind. And I thought to myself, that dog has a really, really thick skin. And sure enough, there is a study that says they did a study of 27 different dogs, and I think 6 or 7 different of breeds. And they discovered that among all the breeds they studied, the Lab by far had a significantly thicker skin than all the other dogs.
And some of them are thicker than other Labs too.
Yeah.
Like you can tell. There's some dogs that might be a little temperature sensitive when you're hunting them. There's some that are like, no way, Jose, I'm not putting my feet in.
Yeah.
And then like Duke Kerr, I mean, it could be a hailstorm. There could be a tornado going through the decoy spread, and you can't get them out of the hole in the blind. Like, you could have a giant rare steak slapping in front of him, and he will just keep looking out the hole.
Yeah.
Watching him run through the hole in the ice in Arkansas and stuff like that, he'll run through the center of the ice hole, punch out in the middle, pick up a bird, and go right back in the hole in the ice to come back.
Yeah.
And all the other dogs go around. Part of that's de-cheating, obviously, but like he just doesn't care.
Yeah.
And those are the things that make a good dog for hunting.
Yeah.
Good dog is someone's perspective. But
yeah, we'll talk about that later too.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so then he dives into this whole characteristic. This is all, and he said dogs are synthetic creatures, which I thought was really interesting. He's like, Everything that we do, everything that a dog is man-made.
Yeah, we've created it.
We've created every part of a domesticated dog, which is so true. But I didn't think about it that way. I think he said they're synthetic. I probably am using the wrong word. But he talks about every single characteristic that we look for in a sporting breed. Pointer, flusher.
Yeah.
He talks about terriers, his rat killers and things. All of that stems back from 5 key characteristics that wolves have. And so I'm going to read this part of the transcript because I think this is like really interesting. I think you're going to like this. So the wolf, it's got a grumble in its stomach. It's hungry. Okay, so what does it do? The 5 things that it does. First of all, it seeks. It looks around. So a wolf gets out of its den, or the coyote, if they're hungry, what do? They start looking around. It seeks. They do they do that by walking, trotting, running, but they're looking, they're seeking. Finally, they locate game with their nose, and they use their eyes. They use whatever they can to locate that game, like say a rabbit. The next, they stalk it. Then they chase it, right? Yeah. They creep up on it and they point it, briefly stalk it. The thing runs. It chases it. The next thing it does, it seizes it. It looks around, and then it kills it. The next thing they do is they consume some of it, and the important part for retrievers is they take it back and they share it, which I thought was really interesting.
Very.
They share it. So there's the wolf. It seeks game, it locates game, stalks game, chases it, seizes it, grabs it, and then kills it, and then it shares it. And the instinct that retrievers have, and labs have this in spade, is it shares. They want to share. They want to share their life. They want to share being with men on ships, is what he says.
That's very interesting. And that brings me to like a thought process that when I'm looking at, say, my string of dogs, right? I have dogs that are substantially more naturally predacious than others. Mm-hmm. And something about that I love. And you're the same way in a sense of like, oh, when a dog just steamrolls that honker in the cornfield, right? This dog I've got, Dutch, like, she's a predator. She's hunting for herself when she can. And something about that is just like the most magical thing to watch. Dan uses the term poetry in motion a lot, talking about any kind of dog work or training or all of it coming together, right? Just watching her like just snatch a bird, it's just different than some other dogs. Mm-hmm. The other dogs are a little more mechanical and, they're just more domesticated. They care more about what we want, whereas like a dog like her is just there for the thrill.
Yeah.
And it's just very different perspective, different mindset from the dog.
Yeah. And what he was saying is that all 5 of these characteristics, if you look at every breed that we have selectively done all stems from one or more of those instinct traits that we want to do. We want to get like the pointing, like it's all about the stalk. Mm-hmm. Dogs love that. They want to stalk and then they want to catch, and they figured out the best way to catch is to be on point and freeze that other bird, quarry.
When you have that, one of those traits, if you have one that's more exacerbated than another, one of them is going to be real low. So a lot of pointing breeds are very weak on the retrieve.
But but now my question is, did we breed that out of them because it wasn't a requirement? Or
I think they're a little counterproductive to an extent. Like if that dog is a little more hesitant or cautious and doesn't want to scare that bird necessarily, they're more into the chase in a sense than the actual object, where like the Labrador is more about the object itself. And like you said, bringing it back. Mm-hmm. Those dogs have been bred to cover more ground, to hunt more with their nose, to establish that point and hold it so we can locate that bird. But at the end of the day, those pointing breeds, like a field trial-y version of it, I would say.
Yeah.
They want to run and hunt. And once that bird's dead, it doesn't mean much to them anymore.
Yeah.
Like they want the live thing. They're all about the chase. And there's some Labradors that are more motivated by the object itself, and some are more motivated by the exercise. I would say that like Widow is more of an exercise-based dog, whereas like Dutch is definitely object-oriented.
Yeah.
I mean, she's all about getting that thing in her mouth.
Yeah.
So
and then there's certain dogs like my new dog Autumn it's I want to be your friend. I want to share with you more than any other thing. Now, I should tell the story about what happened last night. So I fed her and I closed her crate. So I thought in the garage. And I pulled some ducks out of the freezer and put them in my little bucket because we're going to use them to train today. And the worst thing is when you open up the door to the garage and there's a dog like, "Hey, what's up?" And I'm like, "Oh no. What could you have possibly gotten into?" Now I've like puppy proofed the garage. So like I have the fertilizer in places that they'd have to be gymnasts to get to and things like that. But I didn't think about it, and I left these ducks on the ground. And I looked over and I saw this duck carcass. It was a carcass, and every organ and meat was eaten out of this duck. And I went, "Oh no, my dog's ruined." I was like, "Oh no!" So the whole drive to Sharon this morning, I'm just like, if I throw this duck, because I came up with the whole game plan. I was like, I'm gonna get there, I'm gonna put the e-collar on her, I'm gonna force fetch a few bumpers, just make sure. The dog's 7 months or 6.5, 7 months old, somewhere in there. And she's through it, force fetch and everything. I was like, all right, we're gonna just make sure. And then I tossed the duck, and she ran out there, picked it up, all nice and pretty, brought it back, and I was like, oh, thank God.
What did you expect her to do? Just pin it to the ground and strip the breast out of it?
I thought you were just gonna start eating it. Once you've tasted it, I've tasted duck flesh.
Then it's over.
It's over. I just figured it was ruined. But then I said that to a few people, like, oh yeah, that happens all the time on accident. I'm like, really?
Yeah, I got a client that's a guide in Arkansas, and he comes back with the dog last year, and he's like, well, she ate that breast out of 10 snow geese. I'm like, what? What are you doing with your dog where you're not watching her and she eats 10 snow geese?
What was how did this happen?
They're killing piles of birds in conservation season, and she's like, they just lay the dog. Dog just lays inside the A-frame or whatever. He's working birds. She's just hand selecting, stripping them open and stripping the meat out. And she just eats the meat off the breast, and she'd clean them. And he's like, can you work on that maybe? And I'm like,
how?
I'll try. But she's not going to do it. She's not dumb. And obviously the dog never even attempted, but that's one of those things you have to just fix in the moment. She's smart. She knows I'm training and paying attention to her. Those dogs know when you're watching them and when you're not.
Yeah. Well, especially when there's all that action going on.
And she's been getting away with it birds. Yeah, she's seen more birds than all of my dogs combined. Yeah. So she has plenty of opportunity to strip a couple breasts out of a snow goose when nobody's watching.
All right, so we're my last cool fact from the Ducks Unlimited podcast. This was the second podcast really interesting. But this one was all about how the breed actually got named, developed, and the two guys and all that. You should listen to it. But it jumps into the beginning of competition, of field trials. And they said, like, well, ever since the caveman days, you'd had two guys that was sitting there with two different dogs, and they were trying to figure out how they could prove that their dog was better. And I was like, yep, that's mankind. Don't talk
it was
about
the black one, obviously.
Yeah. Oh, sure it was. Considering you didn't pass a single one at the Grand, a black one.
Golden and a yellow.
Go Yellow Labs. All right, so nothing against any other colors. Just let's work for me.
Perfect.
And I'd take a black any day of the week. And I've had a chocolate. So they started field trials like in 18-something. All right. And then it wasn't until they started doing retriever trials in some form or fashion the end of the 1800s. So 1903 was the first time a Labrador was introduced in a competition setting, in a national setting. The Labrador breed exists, like there's records of people keeping like personal pedigrees and stuff way prior to that. Like I think 1830 or something was when they started like to record or something. And like any fact checkers out there, don't give me a hard time. Okay, this is all from memory. But I got these two dates because I wrote these two dates down. In 1903 was when the Labrador was introduced, and it was a few of them that went to the retriever competition. All right. It was predominantly flatcoats that ran this. By 1911, the entire field was Labradors.
That's crazy. You're telling me, what'd you say?
1903 to 1911.
Wow. Very prolific.
And there was one dog. His name was Peter something.
I thought you were going to say like Lean Mac.
Or Floyd. Yeah, no. There was this one dog. It was like Peter of something. I didn't write that
Dude,
down.
you got to name your next stud dog Peter.
Peter. I'm not going to have a next stud dog. I'm done with those males. Anyway, that's not entirely true. But there's a piece of me deep down that feels that way. I like females more. Anyhow,
I do too.
So the big thing was that this dog did, and they took it from the sheep dogs, the sheep herding dogs. He would respond to a whistle and took hints from his handler.
Hints
is what they called it.
And there was no other dogs doing that. It was just Peter.
It was just Peter. Peter would take hand signals.
Peter was out there just sending it, and they're like, "Well, that's the dog for us."
Well, he was picking up the birds faster because I don't know if it was timed, but that's what he references.
Yeah.
And that was the beginning of handling.
That's insane.
Was a dog named Peter. I thought that was really nerdy and cool.
Yeah.
So,
No, that's a cool one.
So there's so much. Like the podcasts are just jam packed with it. So and they're short. They're like 35 minutes each. I'm like, how do you guys pack so much information? We just get on the Hunt Test Hobo podcast and blab for an hour. The reason is they're scientists. They're all a bunch of scientists and fancy folk. We're sitting here hillbillies from the. We need to get more people from the South. I've actually had a few people reach out to me and be like, when are you gonna interview some people from down South? I'm like, I never have tried to do that, not maybe like anybody from the South, like text me, message me, whatever, and if you got a good story, we'll do it. But
Chris will just be trying to dissect what they say the whole time. Like you're like
that's terrible. You're never invited back. That was terrible. Anyway, yeah, so if you guys got some good guests, I'm looking for some recommendation from our Southern boys. The Yankee could use some references. All right. So that's enough of the history stuff. But again, seriously, go check out that podcast. It was fantastic, and
Peter,
I can't wait.
I'm stuck on that. That's cool. Next,
which one? The Peter?
Yeah.
I hope
that's
it's Peter.
hilarious.
It's going to be Paul or something. That guy screwed it up. I'm pretty sure it's Peter because a guy that I work with, his name's Peter, and I was going to text him like, "Hey." And he would have no idea. Yeah. I'm like, a cool dog was named Peter, and your name is Peter.
It's like, dude, Are you okay? Do you need help?
He'd be like, are you sure I want you working in this position that you're in? You're a nut.
I kind of like the names that are like that though, because like I got this puppy that I named Rick.
Yeah.
I just love that. It's
Yeah.
something different.
Well, I tried Jimmy, and that didn't work. That was kind of well. I mean, it's not that it hasn't worked. He's got just some growing up to do. That's it.
He has grown up to do.
He and I've heard from many people that this particular sire produces dogs that just take a little bit more time to mature. We won't say his name.
I have one too at the same time. Mine's how much older? Mine's like 10 months, I think.
Yeah, it's probably like, what, 5 months more older? 4 or 5 months?
And honestly, he hasn't come around until like the last month.
Yeah, but now he's a monster, right?
Yeah, I would say so. For his age, definitely. He's doing the T and the water T, and he's doing like big marks on land. He swims like choppy in the water, though. He's too jacked. He needs to learn how to level out. And
so
I'm doing a lot of really, really big, long swims. Just like, hey, look at that thing out there, buddy. Go get it.
Go get it. Yeah, I'm interested to see how he turns out because he's intelligent. Like the handling drills and everything were fantastic. It was as soon as like there was any sort of like, hey, you have to do this to get this with retrieving that he was just like, nah, I'd rather chase butterflies.
Yeah, like this one is like insatiable prey drive in a sense. But
was he like that when he was younger?
No.
Yeah.
Okay. No. He was like what I just said. Yes.
Oh, see, that's my
I'll
problem.
put it this way: like I threw a bumper in the water when he was a little puppy, and he just swam. Just did it right. Yeah. But after I threw like 2 bumpers in the water, I went to go leave, and he started like barking at the water, like he's all about it. He just like gets hyper focused and loses all self-awareness outside of the work, right?
Interesting.
So something that's been interesting with him that I really haven't experienced with a ton of other dogs is he's extremely hypersensitive, but has like extreme motivation to do pretty much everything all at the same time. So,
all at the same time. So he's like, I want to go this way.
So I want to go straight. Like he's watching, say Adam's out there throwing me a bird. I say sit. Nick him, right? He goes down, comes right back up. Sit, Nick, again, right? If I increase my pressure as he continues to defy me.
What's he doing wrong that you're nicking him for? Because I feel like you didn't say that.
Say he's like, okay, so say he's hovering, right? Okay, and he understands that hover. It's been taught. So like I'm doing the pull up on the pinch collar or light neck, whatever, and push down. So I'm actually levering his head down, which is literally a whole other podcast topic that we could go into. But I'm teaching the dog to like actually press his butt down against the ground. And he understands that whole thing. If I increase pressure, if I go from a 3 to a 5, talk about a spaz out. I mean, he completely loses focus on what we're trying to accomplish at that point. So what I'm getting at is the most success I've had with this dog is very light pressure 100% of the time and just being very consistent about it. Like I'm never raising that collar level ever. I'm just nagging him to death and it works. And obviously positive reinforcement following every time I'm using that collar pressure or any kind of pressure, situational collar, whatever you want to call it. But I cannot get on him in any way, shape, or form and get anything accomplished from it. There's some dogs, it's like, they're pushing me today. I'm going to turn up the pressure a little bit, get some success, and then leave that situation. That doesn't happen with him. So definitely hypersensitive would be the term that I use. But I think that training him is going to take a long time. But I do think that he's going to be like probably one of my best dogs that I have. Yeah.
And see, that's the question that I'm struggling with. Because I believe the dog has everything he needs to be successful. Like, I really do. Like, I think it's just going to take a very, very long time to get there.
This dog's going to be 3 before I run it in anything.
Yeah. And to me, like, I wouldn't say I'm a breeder first, like, because I'm not. But I'm not going to keep a dog that I don't feel like is breedable material. And my question that I'm wondering right now is this something that I would want to reproduce and be a part of? Not meaning that the dog shouldn't be bred, but is that something that I want to have associated with me?
Yeah.
And then is that the and so like I'm basically like, well, I'm going to finish till November and I'm going to make a decision. Not because I don't think that dog is great, or not that I don't think that dog can be great. He's just not the type of puppy that I want to be reproducing.
Yeah, I mean, he's mentally immature, and they all mature at different rates, obviously.
Yep.
But like your winter puppies are like they're mature. You can do all
They're
sorts
freaks,
of stuff,
man.
Yeah,
like I've
and,
never had a puppy as smart as these ones that I've trained.
Well, and they let you get away with a lot of stuff earlier than a lot of other dogs, and then it's more fun faster.
It's so much more fun.
No, I definitely get that. And people enjoy all different parts of the process. Some people love the puppy stage. I like teaching that stuff, and then once I can, basically once you get a finished delivery to hand, then the whole world opens up. Then you leave pile work, and then the whole world opens up again, and it's like these little stages where it's like refreshing once you leave them.
I was thinking about that today. I have 3 favorite stages, and then everything kind of in between is just like whatever, you got to get through it.
I'll be interested to hear yours.
I love the entire puppy stage up to about 4 months. I love that part. Probably my top favorite part is those 2 months of, okay, they come home or, I keep one or whatever. When I'm teaching them all that basic obedience and it's all treat based and I'm teaching them hand signals and I'm teaching them how to line and all that cool stuff. Love that stuff because it's so quick in their learning. And very rarely do I have one that has a really bad attitude about that. Because when I'm selecting a dog, I'm definitely selecting for treat desire. Like they better treats. Like that's something that is really important for me. So I'm checking that. Like that's my favorite section. Then there's the time where they start to lose their teeth. So from 4.5 months to 5.5 months is like the worst time. Because you got these dogs that want to kind of retrieve but kind of don't want to retrieve. And you just never know which one's going to be kind of there if their teeth are hurting that day or whatever. That is not a really fun part of this whole thing.
No.
And then like you get into let's say for me, like they already have a really good understanding of hand signals. They're 3-handed casting. Their obedience at this point is normally really good. They're collar conditioned all through, typically that for me is like 5.5 months. And if I have all that's done right, typically I get into the force fetch phase, which I don't mind. It's fine. It's not my favorite part, but it is what it is. I absolutely love as soon as they're through the tee. When you get through the tee,
that's like the biggest milestone essentially in the beginning.
Yeah. If you get to the tee and you get through swim by, like I'm kind of finishing swim by, then those next 6 months are the best.
Yeah.
Because you get to do all the teaching of all, and you're starting to teach them how to make decisions. Like I'm having an absolute ball with Autumn right now because it's like, okay, you're through mod T, which is like basically for a lot of programs it's like the double T level. You're starting your pattern blind work. You're already doing 4-pole and water. You're through swim by. You're starting cheating singles. You're starting to actually really mark.
The picture is coming together for the first time of these are marks and this is a blind. Yeah.
She's starting to understand, okay, back means I just go. Mark means I look for the mark and then I go for the mark. All those things, the clicking is just wow. And I think that there's something that happens there's something they mature a lot in that little phase. And you'll see, especially with females, you'll see their kind of desire, their dopey attitude go to from dopey to I'm going to eat this duck right now. But that predatorial instinct starts to come out and they become monsters. I freaking love that part.
Part of that has to do with the fact that there's no longer a bunch of automatic pressure.
Yeah, that's true.
When that leaves, it's amazing what the dogs turn into when they become comfortable doing all these new things instead of oh, this is new. Yeah, I'm having fun, but it's you still are a little nervous.
Should I have fun? That's what I always think Autumn is thinking in the back of her mind. We're doing something new. She's like, should I be having fun right now? You should be. And then after 2 repetitions of it, she's like, this is fun. The water is great.
Yeah. I would say that for myself, You
didn't let me finish my third. You totally cut me off.
Well, okay, go ahead.
And then the third is like when you're starting to teach like really complex marking scenarios.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Like
that's definitely one of mine for sure.
So there's like this the phase of like teaching them all the basics of marking, and then you got to go through this like phase of like 6 months of where you're just like throw marks that they can do. Yeah. Then you start getting into these like very generic pictures, but it's like not really that fun to do, but like you got to do it. You okay there, Winter? What was that? Anyway, I don't know if you guys heard that, but she just roared like a little lion. Anyway, and then you get into like the really complex stuff. And but you can't rush into that, so you got to do that 6 months or however long that is. Like I do a lot of sessions a day with a dog, so
Chris has his whole program sped up by like 5 times.
It is
because he's just out there training the dog all day long.
Hey, if you do a bunch of micro sessions,
do
micro sessions. Micro sessions are not a bad deal. When I say micro sessions, I mean like 4 to 5 minutes of something, but like I try to do at least 5 of those a day.
Yeah,
and it's like. Bam! They learn so fast, but you got to have the right dog. Like I can't do that. And
100%.
And I'm gonna. Then I'll stop talking. I want to hear your 3.
Yeah.
But it doesn't even matter. Like we have one. I have one from one. I have 2 dogs right now from Winter's last breeding. Autumn, who's mine, and then there's another one that I'm gonna flip. They are just very different dogs.
Yeah.
I really think the flipper is gonna be a freak. Because she has a lot of the characteristics of the prey drive, but she still wants to work with you. Versus Autumn is like, I really want to work with you. Because Autumn really wants to work with me, but she still enjoys it. I can do more with her than this other one because I have to pace that right. Because I have to balance
momentum,
that I don't become
control.
I can't be the bad guy all the time. I got to really let her have a lot of that so that there's this really good balance. So from the exact same breeding, I have to move at a different pace. But there is not going to be a single thing wrong with this dog.
Yeah, which is super common. Freak. That happens all the time, whether it's the amount of time or work put into the dog or it's just the genetic straw that they drew, Yep. But yeah, like I said, I definitely agree about the marking concepts. That's the coolest. If I was only allowed to do one thing as a trainer, though, like I want to be the de-cheating guy.
The de-cheater.
Like, dude... There is nothing cooler than throwing some wicked cheating singles and your dog's just like, I go straight. Like, that's wicked. Yeah. That is the coolest thing to me. That's
as long as they hunt for the bird at the end of that.
They got to do that too. They can't just like run away on a straight line. Like, see ya.
See ya. Come get me on an ATV if I missed it.
Yeah. But that's probably my favorite. Also, I would say when I'm teaching like hunt savvy stuff, so what I mean by like that is, for example, today we threw live ducks in the water for young dogs in a little cove, right? And just let the ducks dive and dive and dive. And just teaching the dogs that, just keep chasing it. You're going to get it. You're going to get it. And if they start looking tired, you rack that duck on the water with the shotgun and then they get the bird right at that moment when they thought they were about to give up, right? Mm-hmm. And you just teach them to have that resilience. Like, you're going to get it. Just keep fighting. Just keep fighting. And that's with like, young hunting dogs, but even, all these hunt test dogs are getting that when they're in that young stage. I took Boomer out there, that other dog I was talking about a little bit ago, and he got live birds today. I think it makes a very well-rounded dog by giving them that experience. Mm-hmm. Experience is all valuable.
Yep.
And I enjoy that piece of it too. That's definitely probably my favorite.
So you got 2. Do you have a third? Or you just got 2?
I like the puppy part in the beginning. Like when you can really start doing like leash work and treat work and stuff with them. Like I really enjoy that. I have this little puppy.
You got
Rick.
A puppy right now. I can hear it. Finally starting to make noise.
Yeah, Rick. He's pretty cool.
Oh, the dog's name is Rick?
I named it Rick.
You never told me what you named him. I can't believe you didn't tell me.
I don't know. I thought I mentioned it. No. It's pretty funny. It's because it's pretty versatile. You could go with Ricky Bobby, Pickle Rick. There's all sorts of stuff.
Nice.
But he's not going to stay here forever. I think I got a home for him already. But he's out of some cool bloodlines. He's out of Tiger, which has produced a ton of really nice dogs. And then a bitch that's out of Grady and a pretty decent female too. Nice. So just something different to play with. I like playing with all the genetics, which kind of leads us into the next.
All right, so we're
deal.
gonna have to do an abbreviated version of what we're doing because we're already at like 49 minutes.
Yeah.
So, apologize for all of you having to listen to all of our blabbing, but we're finally getting to another smaller point. So we haven't pre-talked about this. So I came up with, people always message me about, hey, what pedigree should I get, or should I buy a dog like this or a dog like that? And so I'm just curious your thoughts on these three different scenarios. So if somebody's going to buy a first-time dog and they want to primarily hunt with it, but they're interested in the hunt test game, what type of dog would you be looking for?
First of all, get a Labrador. That's the number one. If you want, I mean, honestly.
For your first dog, probably.
For your first dog, I mean, this is just basic experience. They're more easily trained than others. Like, that's a very generic expression, but it's my opinion. And I would say, here's the things that I personally, FCs that I've never heard of scare me.
Mm-hmm.
Like, those are where you get your really hot dogs that may not have the most brains behind them. If there's a reason that they're not getting bred a lot or they're not big producers, stuff like that, but they're cheap to breed to in comparison. They still have that FC in front of their name, so people will breed to them. First of all, find somebody reputable that has produced good gun dogs, whether they're a pro trainer or, reaching out to somebody like Chris or something like that. Arm yourself with knowledge. Educate yourself in regards to who knows what they're talking about. And then get their opinions on what they've had good experiences with that is in your price range, right? I would say for somebody looking for just a decent dog, good first hunting dog, that's going to be about $1,500 to $2,000 any day nowadays.
So you live by the old mantra of buy the most expensive dog you can afford?
Do I? In general, that's not necessarily true.
Yeah, I think the way I would answer the question that I just asked to you is that really depends, because
it's a different game if you're looking for.
Yeah. Well, because that's the thing is the most expensive dog, perhaps could be the perfect dog for you, but what's more important than the price is the games that the parents have played. To me, if it's your first dog,
totally.
If it's your first dog, I would not be looking at probably
FC bred to a QAA bitch or something like that.
Not because that they could be too hot. Like, that could be a part of it, but
it's not necessarily the attributes that you're looking for if you're looking for a hunting dog.
For a hunting dog that plays the hunt, that perhaps play the hunt test game, I would be looking for a grand breeding or an HRC female to a grand stud that I knew some information about, and it already had produced something. I think that already has produced something is very, very important.
Yeah, and go on the hunting lab pedigree, pull up that sire, click the offspring button down at the bottom, scroll through what kind of bitches have been bred to him. First of all, educate yourself on the titles and what they mean and what it takes to gain those, which all goes back to educate yourself, find somebody that knows stuff. But going through and looking at those offspring, looking what they've produced is huge. And how many titled dogs are out there out of this dog,
And you can find somebody that's on Facebook that owns one of those dogs, and you have to call enough of them to find out if they've, what the dog is like, or Facebook message them or whatever. I did that a lot. Like, I would look at, let's say I was interested in this dog out of a certain female. Well, first of all, I tried to just message the owner of that litter and be like, what's the female like?
But you also got to get somebody else's perspective too.
I start there, and then I ask for references. I've asked for references many times, and sometimes it doesn't work out. Sometimes the dog that I got is not the dog that I thought I was going to get based on the references, but it's worked out more than it has not worked out. And so I ask for references, and typically they give you the successful ones.
Oh, of course,
right?
they're not gonna.
Right. So you got to take that with a grain of salt. But then you ask, okay, what? And I always ask, what didn't you like about your dog? And most people will tell you one thing.
Every dog has a quirk. I haven't seen one yet that doesn't.
What are you trying to say?
Or has some sort of kryptonite.
Yeah, I'm just kidding.
That's one too.
Yep, that's okay. I think we've, just for the sake of time, that's what I would do if I was looking for my first dog and I was wanting to hunt primarily and perhaps jump into the hunt test game. The reality is there are so many grand breedings out there all the time now. Maybe not a grand female that has multiple passes, which I think means a lot. But there's a lot of very solid,
and they're pretty reasonably priced.
Yeah.
Somebody I just saw had one. It was grand to grand, and they were like $2,500. Like, that's a pretty good price for two accomplished dogs, you know?
Yeah. Do you think the kennel matters?
Do I think the kennel matters? Like, in regards to what?
Well, I saw this kennel and I heard they had good dogs, and I bought a dog out of their lines.
Oh.
I'm curious if the world even works like that anymore.
Yeah, I don't know if Candlewood and Watermark are two giant names in the Labrador industry, and a lot of people that don't know anything about dogs know of them.
Yeah.
I love both. Dan had that Candlewood dog Trouble. That was a really cool dog.
Yeah, Trouble was cool.
That dog
Rooster was pretty cool too.
Yeah, but he wasn't a Candlewood dog though.
Wasn't he?
No, he was. No, I don't know why I can't think of his name. The guy we bought the gooseneck from. That was out of his dog Eli. Can't remember. But
sorry, I screwed that up. Forget it. Redact that. Pull back.
But no, I like the Watermark dogs. I got Voodoo and then Duke. But those are just some really nice dogs. But that's the big kennel name,
Yeah.
Two of those. But no, I think that individual dog is way more important, especially the bitch. And
well, it's becoming more common that it's a situation like me where it's one, maybe two females. It's not like they're starting these massive breeding operations. And
I would rather buy a puppy from somebody because that dog was extremely successful, and it was someone that just had a dog and had a lot of success, and they decided they felt like they needed to breed that dog to better the breed. You can't always find that. And it's not always in everyone's price range.
Yeah, the other thing you got to look out for is the other thing you got to look out for is the guy that has an HRCH female that passed 1 out of 25 tests or 4 out of 25 tests.
Yeah.
So that's the other thing. I have bought HRCH females bred to grand dogs, and they turned out great. But you have to know what you're looking at and make sure you know the history of a dog that just
videos.
Yeah,
that's the thing I love to do. Everyone has a smartphone in their pocket now. I can be like, hey, you have a video of this dog running a triple or some singles or a cheating single or something like that? So, like, when I bought Voodoo, I asked them if they had videos of the mother.
That's a great tip. Yeah.
And it was a finished test, and that dog smoked a technical water test. And I'm like, okay, I'll take one. I bought 2. I bought a male for a client, and I bought her, too. And then, I think that getting footage and getting your eyes on that dog doing some work is super important.
Yeah. That is one of the reasons I really like the Super Retriever series is I've watched a lot of the dogs just on all those videos and in a very challenging scenario. But I'm also mostly looking for like line manners and how they what do they look like they're working with you and things like that. So
line manners is so big. That is partially training, but a lot of it is the way that they handle their emotions. Genetically.
Yeah. Definitely. How they handle their emotions genetically. That's a very good point.
It's like
I love that video. I love that video tip. That's a good one, Tyler. I don't know if we got time to do these other ones.
We can summarize them.
Okay, so I had the second one was this is your second, third, fourth, fifth dog. So you've had one. Because I think there's a big difference between your first dog and maybe your second dog. And let's just say this is your second dog. You trained the first dog yourself with the help of a pro. This is your first dog that you're going to do by yourself.
Did you get like an HRCH on the other dog and you went through the testing stuff?
You got an HR title.
HR.
You put it, well, No, the program
I think
HRCH title, whatever. Yeah. Sure. You
the
fill it
dog
in
went through
the
the tests.
The dog went through the whole testing experience. You fell in love with it. You love hanging out and stopping at the Hunt Test Hobo truck and getting.
But it's
barbecue.
not a grand dog.
It's not a grand dog.
Yeah. So,
but now you want to play. You want to buy a dog that you can train yourself and play as many of the games as you want. It's kind of to me, it's the winter scenario.
Yeah, well, that's what you do is you find a winter and you buy one.
Okay. Well, how do you do that?
mean, no, you have to find those dogs that are trained in that kind of a situation, like amateur trained dog that the guy went and ran all the tests himself and had great success. You need to hand select those breedings. Like, you can't just be like, I can't find one right now. I'm going to buy this. Like, no, wait for that dog. Like, I remember when I was.
So would you say patience is more important on your second and third dog than it is your first?
Totally. Like,
wow,
part of it's
you sounded like a high school girl. Totally. Like,
you need to dive in eventually in the beginning and get your feet wet and learn if it's what you want to do. But if you want to do it again, like, let's get serious.
Mm-hmm.
Pay the money, wait the time, be selective. Like, I trained a bunch of dogs for Dan before I had a dog. I remember key dogs.
You waited forever to buy Widow.
I did.
But that was your first dog, though. But that's a little different.
I was
pro.
Like, yeah. I'm gonna hand select this one, and I remember I was looking at a flex breeding. I was looking at all sorts of stuff, but all that was because the experience I had around some other dogs, and coming up in dog training, it was like people say field trial dog, and then you just hear about this like psychotic animal that you can't control. That is not the case necessarily.
Mm-hmm.
My best house dog is out of an NFC. Both of them. My two best house dogs are, the fox puppy and then the boo boo pup. But I think definitely that like buying the right dog is important. Wait for that dog. Do research. Contact people before the breedings happen. If you find a dog that you really like.
Yeah.
If Chris didn't have something posted, be like, hey, Chris, if you're going to breed winter again, or if you have another dog, or just talk to people.
Yeah.
If
networking
you're really
is
serious
the best.
about it.
Is the best thing. I reached out for winter to buy winter before there was no posting about it. I just saw, what I did, and I've said this on the podcast, I think, is
just nerded out and did some research.
I went into the grand results. I was like, because I didn't have any other goals beyond like, well, Dan says the best thing to run, the hardest thing he runs is the grand. I guess I want to run that because that's just how I was wired. I didn't know anything about anything else.
Yeah.
And I said, well, which dog has the most grand passes? And at that point, it was Mason. That was still alive. So Mason. But I was like, well, my friend's already got a puppy out of Mason. I don't want one of those. What's the next? And then Scratch was number 2. And I was stalking Steve Eric before Steve Eric knew I existed. I was stalking Steve Eric on Facebook, which is pretty challenging since he doesn't post like anything.
Yeah, good one.
So, but I found like a year and a half earlier, there was a post about Scratch being bred to Piper through Jeremy Legg. And I was like, who's this Jeremy Legg guy? Because I didn't know anything at that time. Yeah. And I clicked on his and I'm like, oh. And I looked up the dog's name. And at that time, I think she had 5 passes. Piper had 5 passes. And I was like, wow, 5 passes bred to. I misspoke that. Scratch had 8 passes at that time. But I was still like, that's a lot of grand passes. If they pass the grand, I assume.
Very sturdy pedigree, even to a guy that doesn't know what a lot of it means.
I didn't know what it meant, but I remember texting it to Dan. I said, hey, and I was so nervous. Because I've been looking for a dog for a while now, and I had sent Dan a few other ones. He's like, nah, that's not that good. I wouldn't buy that one. But I didn't want to lose my opportunity. So when I finally talked to Jeremy, I just put a deposit down, but I didn't tell Dan. And so then I was like, well, hey, Dan, I'm thinking about getting a dog out of this breeding. What do you think? Because my conscience got to me. And then he calls me back. He said, hey, I don't know whose dog that is, but can you get me on the list? And that's what I knew I did good. That's how Bean ended up here. It's because I was like, what do you guys think about this? So anyway, all right. So that was number. Man, we got to keep going here. Woo! I'm starting to like get hot too, because I like my AC is. Anyway, I shut up, Chris. Focus. All right. So this is your same scenario ish. This is your second or more dog, third, fourth, fifth, but you've done the puppy thing a few times, and your wife said, "No, I'm not doing the puppy thing." So you're gonna need to look for a started dog. What would your process be like?
Well, one of the scariest things I ever receive, like message-wise, is, "Hey, I bought a started dog," from a client, and that's when I go, ugh. Because a lot of the time, if the dog's getting sold as a started dog, it's because something didn't work out or somebody else made a mistake, and you're going to have to deal with some skeletons in that dog's closet. So if I had, say I was in a stage of my life,
and we're going to pause here for 1 second. We're talking about a guy that wants to compete.
Yeah. So
okay, we're not talking about just a guy that wants to hunt.
Somebody that would raise puppies for you. So you go select this puppy and then put it with someone to raise it. Like I do a couple, I have one at a time, basically all the time. You know, I'm sure there's other people out there that are doing that as well. I'm sure there's field trial pros that do that too. But I would go about it that way. Or, you know, just reach out to people, but be very selective. Go see the dog. Don't buy it sight unseen. Get videos, all that kind of stuff. Be very. Is there
anything else? What questions would you ask, or what would you be looking for if there wasn't? You know, you didn't want to wait that long. You needed the dog now, which is a terrible thing. But let's just say you did.
And this person that's asking is obviously educated in
they know what they're looking
dog
for.
Training. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I would compare age to what the dog is doing a little bit. You know, it should be relative. As if you started force fetch at 6 months, we'll just use that as a format. I'd like to see the dog within 4 or 5 months doing the T if it's a nice dog, you know. And that's even slow in comparison to what some people will say. But I think that's a reasonable ask out of the dog. And I want to see some video footage of the dog marking.
Yeah.
And I want to see its attitude about work too.
Yeah, the thing is I would ask, why is the dog being sold? Definitely. And then I would follow up with, why is the dog being sold?
Yeah.
And then I would figure out the real reason the dog was being sold.
Totally.
Now, there are folks, like, there's a lot of them. And I think Mark Patton does this a decent amount. He's a big field trial young dog trainer. And I know he runs opens too, but, like, he's got super
successful.
Very successful. But he does a lot of dogs, and then he sells them as started dogs. That is a type of dog that I would be interested if I was trying to play the Hunt Test game. But the thing that and to me, the trainer matters more than the dog in that scenario. Like, totally. I want to know. There, you did it again. There's your teenage girl. Totally. Actually,
totally, dude.
I don't know if it's a teenage girl, but it's some teenage something.
Okay.
Anyway. Sorry. I would be trying to figure out more about the trainer and why that dog's being sold. Because there's people like me that just keep a dog, you know, and then they flip it that year with the total intent of that being what this dog was purchased for.
Mm-hmm.
So,
and that's like Rick for me too.
Yep.
That's the plan with him. You know, it gets a really nice young dog ready to hunt for this client, and you know, he might turn into something more and run hunt tests with it and stuff like that. Just see where the dog takes it. You know.
Yep. And
if he's really absorbing the situation, or if he's really absorbing the training and taking it well, then maybe I'll have him longer. You never know.
Yep. This is the scenario that I would definitely want to buy the most expensive dog that I could afford.
Yeah, but also
you need all those
still
other things.
Being cautious and all that stuff. But
money
you're
is
gonna
not
get what you pay for.
100%. But you are definitely at this point getting what you're paying for.
Yeah,
so.
and honestly, any sort of started dog that's any good, no matter the price you pay, you're getting a good deal.
Yeah.
Because those people that put all the hours of energy and time and of their life into that dog will never get it back. And they dedicated a part of their life to that animal at that point in time.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what you're paying for.
Yep.
And it's worth it.
We got to wrap this. So two things. One is take everything that we said here with a grain of salt. Like, this is our opinion.
Yes.
We may not be right. There is so many different ways to do something, and there's so many exceptions to everything that we talked about. We were talking about generalities. I was very hesitant to even discuss this topic, but so many people have asked about it. So I decided we should just do it. But like I said, this is just how we approach it. Does not mean we're right. Just means, it's our opinion. And second, because I screwed up the intro so bad, I forgot to thank our sponsor, Purina, for everything that they do. And I can't forget that. So, you
don't have to feed Purina anymore because your dog just eats the ducks you lay out for training.
Oh, dude, don't. Maybe they have some duck flavors. I don't know. Do they have duck? I think they have duck, right?
I don't know.
They got chicken and
We're
rice.
pretty classic with the chicken and rice.
Yeah, I'm pretty much chicken and rice guy. But anyway, I love feeding Purina Pro Plan. I'm going to feed it more so my dogs don't eat the duck. And we'll get through it. But Purina, thanks for sponsoring this, and thanks for being such a great partner. And Tyler, thanks for hanging out, man. I got enough daylight to go do the rest of my obedience drills and force fetch and all that jazz. So I'm going to go do that.
Yeah, I'm going to go do dad things.
Dad things.
That's things. Nice. That's new to me.
It is new. My kids are they're in Toledo somewhere on their way, so they got like 4.5 hours until they're home. So they got 4.5 hours to be a bachelor. So anyway, thanhanks for being on, man.
Run drills.
I'm gonna go run drills. And I waited till it cooled down because it was like 93 today. I was like, this is hot. I didn't want to do drills in the middle of the day since I did a bunch of water work in the morning. So, all right, we need to stop talking. We went an hour and 11 minutes and 11 seconds. Look at that. So, thank you. And we'll see you later.
Thanks,
Peace.
man. See ya.